still don't understand. It's senseless to endlessly follow this path that's laid out as if our predecessors' teachings are absolute. Welcome to my dojo. This is KungFuPizzaPrty, and I'm your host, Brandon Knight. And today I am here to review the early 2000s animated epic Street Fighter Alpha Generations. The title is a bit of a mouthful, which means I need to not say it as much as possible, because here on KungFuPizzaPrty, I seek to deliver high-flying action in 30 minutes or less and serve up some wisdom one slice at a time, so I can't be constantly saying Street Fighter Alpha Generations. But let's take some time to talk about Street Fighter. This is not only the first animated film that I'm covering here on the show, very short film, 45 minutes long in its runtime. Not only is this the first animated film I'm covering here on the show, this is also the first video game related franchise that I'm covering here on the show. Street Fighter is, of course, one of the big three alongside Mortal Kombat and Tekken. The original Street Fighter game came out in 1987. It became one of Capcom's flagship properties and games, and to this day, not only is it one of the more popular fighting games, it's one of the more successful geek franchises out there. There is a Wikipedia page that keeps track of, the overall what is the most profitable IP out of, when you bring together, I think it's like the video games, the movies, the shows, the everything. When you put it all together in one big pot, what is the most profitable media franchise out there? And Street Fighter just passes up Grand Theft Auto and is just behind Star Trek. And I just want everybody to sit there and reflect on that for a moment. Street Fighter, if we're going by finances, is almost as popular as Star Trek. That's how much money people are putting into Street Fighter. Because you got to think, the reality of the fact is that Star Trek has been around a lot longer and has had way more movies than Street Fighter has. But also, let's not leave Grand Theft Auto out of the conversation, who has had no movies. That's basically just a video game franchise. Good for them to be so high up on this list. I can link to that list in the description of this episode if you would like to see how the other media franchises. As you can guess, Disney has a bunch that are way further up on the list. But Street Fighter is by far one of the more popular fighting games. It has spawned several mainline games, spin-offs. There's been comic book adaptions. There's been animated films and shows. And of course, the iconic 1994 cult classic Street Fighter live-action film starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. And we'll talk more about this next year, potentially, during the 2026 Coming Soon edition of the show, because if the internet is telling us the truth, which we know the internet lies a lot, allegedly, this time next year, we will be seeing a new Street Fighter live-action adaptation coming to theaters. So stay tuned. Like I said, we'll look for more. I'll keep my eyes posted on that, talk about it more next January. And if that ends up being the case, you'll probably be seeing a lot more Street Fighter content in 2026 here on Kung Fu Pizza Party. Now, personally, I have always thought that, aesthetically speaking, Mortal Kombat is better suited for live action, and that Street Fighter is better suited for animation. And I'm here to say that as great as that campy Van Damme film is, I'm here to say that this animated film, Street Fighter Alpha Generations, has confirmed that for me a little bit. I think animation is the best way to depict Street Fighter in a long-form narrative format, or even in a cartoon. I am that much more interested in checking out the animated series, the other animated, full-length animated films after watching this one. Overall, it was fine. Here on the show, I don't really spend time with star ratings. I find them to be a little arbitrary. If you're interested in star ratings, follow the show on Letterboxd. KungFuPizzaPrty, KungFuPizzaPrty without the A. I do the star rating thing over there if you want that. But, here I would say that I would watch it again, especially now that I kind of know what I'm getting myself into. I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to buy this. I caught it on Tubi. It's on Tubi for free if you're interested in checking it out. It was good. I could see, like, if I was to ever host, and I really would like to do this someday, like a Kung Fu Pizza party, like an actual, like, people are going to buy tickets, there's going to be pizza and movies and the whole thing. I could see slotting this one as a way to kind of, like, fill for time between, like, movie 1 just finished, movie 2 is about ready to begin, so it's going to begin like in an hour, so we'll play this one in between as people are, like, coming and going, kind of thing. I could see it that way. I'm not really interested in purchasing this, especially because apparently when this movie came out, it originally came out for the English audience, but then it was released a couple years later. I think it was like 2005, 2007 is when it came out in English. And then it was added as a special feature 2 to 4 years later for Japan, a special feature on the Blu-ray and DVDs for Street Fighter Legend of Chun-Li, which I'm not buying that movie. That movie's not good, and I don't think that's a hot take. I'm not like the biggest hardcore Street Fighter fan. I did have to, like, refresh my memory on some of the stuff going on here, but I don't think that's a hot take to say that movie is not good. So if that's how I'm gonna get my hands on this, or one of the ways, I'm definitely not buying that. Like I said in last week's review, oftentimes I'm like, if it's part of like a DVD Blu-ray bundle. When I was reviewing Legend of the Red Dragon, I was like, if it's a part of like a bundle of more Jet Li movies. If this was part of a bundle, no, I would have to be very selective about what exactly is coming along with Street Fighter Alpha Generations. Now, this movie has no connection to the Street Fighter Alpha cartoon series, the animated series. It is, however, inspired by Street Fighter Alpha 2, the video game Street Fighter Alpha 2. And I will say it's a little bit choppy at first. When the film first gets started, I was a little bit like, okay, wait, did that happen? Or was that a dream? There's like some like vision dream stuff that goes on at different points. And I'm like, wait, who's this and who's that? Also, I'm probably going to bother some diehard fan. But in this movie, Akuma goes by the name Goki, so I'm just going to call him Goki. I'm sure there's going to be Street Fighter fans rioting in the comments. Please do not Hadouken me in the comments. Or if you listen to this episode, I changed my mind. If you listen to this episode, I want you to go on our Instagram at KungFuPizzaPrty and comment Hadouken. I just want to see who's listening to the show. So anyway, this story follows when Goki Akuma, it turns on him and Goken's master. He embraces the Dark Hado and kills their master. That's like the first little bit of this film. It then flash forwards quite a long time later to when Ryu is arriving at that exact same temple, but he doesn't know it as the temple where Goken trained. He knows it as the temple where Goken trained him. He is returning back to his temple, and now living there in the general area is a quirky old man who's really good at martial arts. Trope. The trope of the really old man who's really good at martial arts, and he has a very attractive granddaughter is what he calls her, and she calls him grandfather. Although later on in a very weird scene, it is revealed that they're like distant relatives, not like actually grandfather granddaughter relation, but still related. So Ryu is very young. He wants to be more than just a street fighter. He wants to be a true martial artist master. Don't we all? No, actually, some of you want to be street fighters, don't you? There's actually a play. Never mind, I shouldn't go into that. There is a gym near me who offers reality-based MMA, and on the website it says AKA street fighting. And normally I would be calling up McDojo Life, and I probably should, but there's something about at least how it's presented on their website that it actually does look very legitimate. And I'm like, I'm already a ninja coach. Should I add Street Fighter to my resume? Anyway, so Ryu wants to become a true martial arts master, and the old man takes him under his wing to be his disciple. All the while, Ryu is having visions of Goki, and he is conflicted as to whether or not he should go and confront Goki and basically kind of like bring this demon to rest, because he has the raging demon blood going through, or excuse me, he has like he's gone into the dark Hado, he's accepted the dark Hado, and he's got, the darkness and the raging demon stuff going on within him now, and is evil. Does he finally challenge him, or does he just kind of like live his life and become a true martial artist? He goes back and forth on this. The grandfather's granddaughter is very much like, hey, my dad died as a martial artist. I really don't want you to become a martial artist. And this is a good point to bring up the fact that the quote I opened this show with was really good, but the dialogue in this movie was very much like 90s super stiff dialogue that, Ryu, are you going to go confront him? I don't know. I have not decided yet. And that was just the kind of dialogue in this movie. It was just at times, not the entire time, but there were points where it's like, wow, this is so stiff. Ryu continues his training. He continues to get a taste of what normal life looks like, until one day, out of the blue, guess who shows up? Sakura. Sakura arrives. There's a restaurant near me called Sakura Bowls, and there's no references to her anywhere. There's no references whatsoever, and it bothers the dickens out of me. Sakura shows up. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Street Fighter lore and mythology and all that, Sakura is the biggest fangirl of Ryu. She's a very good fighter, but she is obsessed with him, wants to be just like him, and was sent by Ken Masters to come find Ryu. More on Ken here in a bit. But after she locates him, Sakura would love the honor to fight Ryu. That is she's going to fight her hero, her idol. So reluctantly, Ryu agrees. And so this is when, you get the big showdown. Ryu's got his gear on. Sakura is wearing her Sailor Moon adjacent outfit, and they have their fight. Ryu wins, but he decides, yes, I want to go confront Goki. So he goes to confront Goki. They have a big showdown. But while this is going on, Ken Masters arrives, and he's going to try and keep Ryu from going to battle Goki, because Ryu also has the raging demon blood inside of him, and he can become evil Ryu. And literally the old man master just sits on top of Ken Masters to keep him from going to stop Ryu. Ryu and Goki have the match. Ryu ends up winning, not succumbing to the Dark Hado. Does not kill Goki. Goki does have a bit of he has this moment where he's confronted with the reality of oh, I have messed up, but then he does promise to one day return to fight Ryu again. Movie ends with it being revealed that Ryu was actually the son of Goken, and he was given to the care of the old man early on in Ryu's life, and then he left, and now he's back, and now the old man becomes one with the nothingness. which talk about, I love how in Street Fighter, their light and darkness is the Dark Hado and also Taoism. Taoism is the good side. Anyway, the power of nothingness. Anyway, so the movie ends, the old man passes away, Ryu decides that he is going to leave and continue his journey, and I don't know what happens to Sakura and Ken Masters. Basically, this would be one of my gripes. Basically, Sakura is a plot device to help Ryu, get to the point of, okay, yes, I'm going to go challenge Goki. And Ken Masters doesn't even need to be there. Like, it's great to see Ken. He's a fun character. And, was also, again, if you're unfamiliar with like the larger lore going on here, he was a student alongside Ryu under Goken. So like it was nice to see him, but like totally did not have to be there whatsoever. There's also an entire scene that doesn't need to be in there whatsoever. So after Ryu and Sakura battle each other, Sakura and the granddaughter, who is an adult, everyone I believe is an adult here, they take a non-sexual bath together. They're just going to have a bath. They're having bath time together. And this is the part where you find out that the old man and the granddaughter are related, but not actually like grandfather-granddaughter. It is a different kind of relationship. And they're taking their bath together, and they leave very little to the imagination. They were like 1 pixel away from having to bump the rating of this movie up. Like, it was very little is left in the imagination. And on top of that, while they are taking their bath and having their conversation, the old man is a peeping Tom hanging outside the bathhouse and then tries to peek in to see them bathing. Yeah, that was a whole like 5-minute scene that did not have to be there. The movie has its flaws. That was one of those scenes that I was like, should I be watching this? I'm not the right target audience for this, am I? The rest of the movie, I feel like I was the right target audience. I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z, and you know what? A lot of this movie, a lot of especially the fight scenes, the best one being when Ryu and the old man are fighting each other initially. Like, a lot of these fight sequences are very good, really reminds me of Dragon Ball Z. I mean, the movie even opens with just people screaming, Dragon Ball Z going Super Saiyan and all that stuff. But then there was this one part, and I was like, what? What is this? Why do we... Whatever, at least it's over. Now let me get back to that line I opened the film with, because despite these moments of stiff dialogue and weird peeping Tom bath scenes and all that, despite all of itself, this movie actually does raise a really thought-provoking question, one that martial artists and those of organized religions have wrestled with for decades, if not centuries, of basically, if I could maybe summarize what Goki is saying there to his master, why do we do what we do? Why do we have our traditions? Why are we put in a box and told we can explore anything we want to as long as we stay in the box, right? A lot of this movie actually reminded me, it was like a very hyper abridged version of The Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi, of just like this turn for Anakin where he wants to explore outside the box of the Jedi into the ways of the Sith, and then Luke being tempted by that much later on and not succumbing. We get it's a storytelling technique that comes up a lot, but I'm very familiar with it from Star Wars. And we see that here, and the answer that this movie gives essentially is that traditions exist as a way to protect us. The wisdom of the past, of our ancestors, whether that's again, in some form of an organized religion like Christianity with the Bible and Jesus and the saints, and or, you know, in the martial arts, you have your master, his master, her master, all the way down to the founder of the martial art, right? You know, if you're in a very traditional dojo, usually behind the master, the students face the instructor, and behind the instructor is pictures or even maybe a shrine to all the different instructors who have come before him or her. Like, we have the wisdom of the past to protect us from the evil that could exist, the dangers that do exist. Basically, the past has either determined through their own knowledge or from experience that, hey, we need to stay within these parameters in order to continue our teachings, that our teachings are upheld, or to safeguard against, you know, dangerous practices, intermingling with other things, whatever the case may be. However, in the real world, tradition isn't infallible. I do find the question that Goki raises here, I think this question of, why do we do what we do? Why do we keep our traditions? I don't think the question in of itself is bad or evil. The intent behind it is what I would be more concerned about, because, you know, here in this film, Goki is challenging this as with the intent of, hey, I've already been dabbling in this dark, evil practices, like, why am I not allowed to do this? I can see the power that's there. But in the real world, we have also seen times when traditions, when systems are challenged and things are turned for the better because of those challenges. You know, I'm sitting here at my desk recording this, and sitting right here next to me, I've been rereading The Tao of Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. You know, the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do challenged the traditions of the martial arts at that time. You know, up until that point, you didn't really have this, you know, you train a little bit in this martial art, and you train a little bit in that martial art, and you take what works best for you, and you formulate your you take your fighting style based off of these different frameworks, and you build out from there. Like, that wasn't, you know, you learned Shotokan karate, and that was it. You trained in Wing Chun, and that was it. That's what the traditions used to be. Even, you know, there in Oakland, when Bruce Lee starts teaching outside of Chinatown to, you know, just Americans, to non-Chinese people, like, that causes issues. You know, there are times when we have to challenge tradition, or at least be willing to raise the question of, why do we do these things in order to grow, I would say. I think it is important for the master, spiritual leader, whatever the case may be, to offer a better answer than, well, that's just the way we do things. You know, because again, as Goki points out in this statement, is it weird that I'm like siding with the bad guy a little bit here? As Goki kind of says here, you know, like, why are we acting like our predecessors were infallible? They weren't. They were humans, or yeah, I don't know if they're considered different things in Street Fighter. I didn't think to look that up. But, like, you know, especially in the real world, like, our forefathers, our foremothers, like, they were not infallible. They made mistakes. Who's to say that a tradition that they have created is part of an oppressive system, or is nearsighted and doesn't consider the reality of, you know, ground fighting, or this, you know, the issues of AI. You know, I'm speaking very broadly, both in the martial arts and in the world today. But again, despite the fact that this movie was just like 45 minutes of good old fashioned brain rot, there was this little sliver of, yeah, we need to address tradition. We need to talk about, why do we do what we do, and to wrestle with wrestle with those things, accept the humility that it will take to admit at times where, you know what, there is a tradition, there is a system in place that actually, like, this is a good tradition, a healthy tradition, system thing, but also be willing to go out there and challenge those that are, again, oppressive or, nearsighted, whatever the case may be. Who would have thought this quirky little 45-minute brain rot with a weird bathhouse scene just really makes you think a little bit. But I got to start wrapping up today's episode. So thank you all for listening to today's episode. If you haven't yet already, please consider rating and reviewing this show wherever you get your podcasts. Pass this episode along to a friend. I've already plugged the social medias. Also, you can check out my YouTube channel, Studio 219, a place for faith and pop culture video content. This has been Kung Fu Pizza Party, and I've been your host, Brandon Knight, where I've delivered high-flying action in 30 minutes or less and served up some wisdom, one slice at a time.